Okay, so picture this. A highly calibrated, meticulously engineered economic machine. We're talking about a system that's designed to pump out just immense, world-class national wealth. It boasts some of the absolute highest living standards on the planet and has maintained virtually unbroken industrial peace for decades now. Now, naturally, you'd probably assume a machine like that runs on the standard economic safety nets we see in almost every other advanced nation, right? Well, what if I told you this absolute powerhouse operates without one of the most fundamental labor protections known to the modern world? Welcome to our explanation on the Singapore machine. Okay, let's dive right into this. $0. Literally zero. That is the statutory national minimum wage in Singapore. And honestly, it's a staggering paradox when you really stop and think about it. I mean, we're talking about a major global financial hub here, a country that routinely tops those lists for millionaires per capita and overall GDP. But despite all that wealth, there is absolutely no universal, legally mandated wage floor to protect the average worker across the board. In most advanced economies, right, a minimum wage is just considered the absolute bedrock of labor rights, the ultimate safety net against exploitation. But here, it simply doesn't exist. So obviously this begs the ultimate question, doesn't it? How exactly does a nation build such immense wealth and keep up this incredible standard of living without a basic wage floor? It's a fascinating economic mystery for sure. To really wrap our heads around this, we kind of have to toss out our traditional Western economic models for a second. We need to investigate the interconnected gears of a highly unique, deeply pragmatic system. A system that wasn't built on, some lofty ideological theory, but on sheer desperate survival necessity. Section 1. The Historical Crucible, Post-Colonial Crises. So Singapore wasn't always this shining beacon of stability. To understand the machine they have today, we actually have to travel back to the pretty chaotic environment where it was originally forged. The whole modern economic architecture was essentially born out of a post-colonial crisis. The 1950s and early 60s, they were just marked by severe industrial unrest. Back in 1955, the Hockley bus riots violently shook the city. Then by 1960, you had the massive glass factory strike. And get this, in 1961 alone, a staggering 400,000 man-days were lost just to strikes and labor actions. That's a massive hit. The young state was facing structural unemployment and an existential threat to its economy. To attract foreign investment, they desperately needed industrial peace. So what was the solution? Well, in 1968, the government pushed through the Employment Act and the Industrial Relations Act, which decisively restricted union power. They legally barred unions from negotiating on core managerial things, like promotions, transfers, dismissals. The era of the strike was effectively ended by law. And this brings us to a somewhat chilling, but honestly entirely foundational quote from founding Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew: "No one owes Singapore a living." Now, this wasn't just some catchy political soundbite. This was the ultimate survivalist ideology that anchored the state's paternalistic labor policies for the next half-century. The message was crystal clear. Economic survival completely trumped abstract notions of labor justice. The government totally repudiated Western-style social welfarism, stressing instead extreme self-reliance and aggressive industrialization to basically pull the entire nation out of poverty by its bootstraps. Section 2. The Shadow Architects, Tripartism and Consensus. Now, what's really interesting about this is, with strikes totally outlawed and a national minimum wage completely rejected, how on earth do you actually decide what people get paid? Well, you engineer a completely different mechanism, one that operates behind closed doors to maintain that hard-won industrial peace. And what makes this work is this unique concept of tripartism. Back in 1972, Singapore established the National Wages Council, or the NWC for short. Instead of this messy adversarial battle between unions and corporations, the NWC engineers wages through consensus. It brings together three equal parties, right? You have the government, employers represented by their national federation, and employees represented by the sole National Trade Union Congress. Basically, they all sit down in a room, review the hard economic data, stuff like inflation and productivity, and they hash out an agreement on exactly how wages should adjust for the upcoming year. The role of the NWC chairman in all this is perfectly described not really as a negotiator, but more like a neutral arbiter. Their job is to guide these three distinct parties toward a unified agreement. Now, are you ready for the wildest part? The NWC guidelines are completely non-statutory, meaning they have absolutely no regulatory power to actually force compliance. None. Yet, because these guidelines are forged through unified consensus at the absolute highest levels, they carry this massive social legitimacy. The entire nation, public and private sectors alike, they effectively just adhere to these recommendations voluntarily. It is this incredible synchronized dance of national wage setting.
Section 3. Engineering the wage ladder. The progressive wage model.
So if there is no national minimum wage, how exactly does the state protect its most vulnerable, lowest-earning workers? Well, they don't give them a floor, they build them a ladder. It's a huge shift in perspective. Notice the core difference here. While a traditional statutory minimum wage creates a flat baseline that is completely delinked from productivity, Singapore's progressive wage model, or PWM, takes a totally different route. It's highly, highly targeted. It applies specifically to historically depressed sectors like cleaning and security work. So instead of a flat floor for everyone, it creates these multi-tiered ladders. And to move up that ladder and actually get a mandated pay increase, a worker has to complete mandatory training. It literally forces the pairing of higher wages with higher productivity and expanded job responsibilities.
The whole philosophy driving this is basically skills over subsidies. The Singaporean system strongly, firmly believes that purely monetary welfarism is just a trap. Instead, they rely on programs like the Workfare Income Supplement and SkillsFuture. Workfare actually tops up the incomes and retirement savings of the bottom 20% of workers. But, and this is key, it's tied directly to employment. The ultimate goal, as the policy architects themselves put it, is to give citizens the wings to elevate their lot through continuous education and training. It ensures that as a worker's pay goes up, their actual tangible value to the economy goes up right alongside it.
Section 4. The Forced Savings Vault. The Central Provident Fund.
Earning the money is really only half the equation in this explainer. What the government actually forces you to do with that money is where the machine truly flexes its muscle, shifting us straight into the realm of asset-based welfare. So the crucial point is this three-step cycle. Step 1. A significant percentage of every single worker's monthly wage is mandatorily deducted, and then that's matched by the employer. Step 2. All these funds go into the Central Provident Fund, or the CPF, which essentially acts as the national custodian of your savings. And step 3. This is the brilliant part. This isn't just money sitting idle in a vault somewhere. The state channels these massive capital reserves to actually fund the construction of public housing and to purchase government bonds. It is this brilliantly engineered, carefully controlled circular flow of funds that forcibly prevents pure consumption, mandating long-term asset building instead.
And this savings cycle literally builds the physical reality of the nation. To put that into perspective, roughly 80% of all Singapore citizens reside in HDB public housing flats, which are funded directly by this exact CPF system. Now, to be clear, this isn't public housing like you might see in a lot of Western countries. These are high-quality, wealth-appreciating assets. So the state doesn't just let you earn a wage, it forces you to save it and then uses those savings to build a home that you eventually own outright. It gives the vast majority of the population a physical, tangible, highly valuable stake in the nation's success. And that, of course, creates deep social stability and truly roots citizens to the country.
Section 5. The hidden tradeoffs. Dual labor markets.
Now, obviously, a system this highly calibrated, this hyper-focused on sheer efficiency and stability, well, it doesn't exist without a few ghosts in the machine. Let's pull back the curtain for a second on the actual costs of this highly engineered utopia. Singapore's demographic breakdown reveals the ultimate buffer for this entire machine, a stark dual labor market. Out of a total population of around 6 million, roughly 70% are residents and 30% are non-residents. And here's the kicker. The progressive wage model and those vast, lucrative CPF benefits, yeah, they apply almost exclusively to local residents. That 30% non-resident population, many of whom are holding low-wage work permits in sectors like construction and domestic labor, they serve as a highly flexible economic buffer. The state can aggressively expand or shrink this foreign workforce based on current economic conditions, ensuring all their targets are met incredibly quickly without upsetting the local socio-political balance at all.
But wait, what happens when the gears of this machine are actually challenged? Well, we can look to the 2012 SMRT wildcat strike. Get this. It had been 26 years since Singapore saw an industrial stoppage. 26 years. But when a group of foreign transit drivers initiated an illegal strike over wage disputes, the state's response was absolute and immediate. Relying on those incredibly strict labor laws forged back in the 1960s, the strike was dismantled almost instantly. The strike leaders were swiftly arrested, prosecuted, and deported. It serves as a very stark, unyielding reminder for everyone involved. The industrial piece of the Singapore machine is maintained by a strict, zero-tolerance policy for anyone operating outside those consensus-driven rules.
Which leaves us with this final provocative thought to really ponder. We've just explored a nation that flat-out rejected the minimum wage. completely outlawed strikes, literally forced asset savings and engineered pay through closed-door consensus and mandatory training. And hey, it has resulted in unquestionable, staggering national wealth and unparalleled stability. But when you look at the incredibly strict levers required to maintain it all, is this highly engineered ecosystem the ultimate blueprint for economic utopia? Or is it a gilded cage built on forced compliance that simply couldn't be replicated anywhere else in the world? It's an incredible paradox, absolutely fascinating to look at, and one I really hope you enjoyed uncovering today.